One of the interesting things with this is when you bring them all together and they need the same source, it goes to data, and that you need the same common source of data so that you're speaking the same language and have the same truth. Because if you use a different data source for the person who's measuring liquidity versus credit versus interest rate, you're going to get a different answer. But you want the same foundation of data. And while we have been trying to tell people for some amount of time that you want to collect this historical data because it can tell you a lot, to move up the curve for optimization from just being reactive, some of the current and new pronouncements, like CECL, really do require, and they push for that data that is needed, historical data. But it's a gold mine, and if people think not so much in being reactive to the pronouncement, but think, how can I utilize this data and optimize it? They'll be so much better positioned. You know, for instance, that data, when you look at it against economic metrics, you can see what were my growth rates and where did the growth come from in response to different economic changes. Therefore, when I'm forecasting and I see some of the economic changes, if we use rates as an example, if rates go up 300 and I forecast that I can get 10% growth today, can I get 10% growth if rates go up, 300 basis points? Well, maybe not. If I can, where's it going to come from? Well, that history might tell me that if rates go to this section or there's this type of movement, this is how I expect my balance sheet to change. That way I'm getting ahead of that and I can anticipate better. And that data that we're talking about can be so beneficial to mitigating those risks and unifying those silos so that you're telling one story and understanding where all the pressure points are.
One of the beautiful things there, Tom, is that the accumulation of interconnected risk really leads us to the accumulation of interconnected experiences. And to touch on something you mentioned before, that the credit crisis was enlightening. I think we have all received a tremendous education. We certainly paid the price, either on a personal basis or a professional basis. Even if you're not in the financial services or risk management industry, we all paid some price as taxpayers or as common consumers through the credit crisis. But from my perspective, as long as we learn the lesson that's available, then I count that as tuition. And if I take that one step further, and this is the beauty of collective groups like GARP, is that when we come together and share the common body of risk management knowledge, then as we are open and authentic and share our experiences, our wins, our losses, then what I've found is by sharing my experience and learning from others, I can learn from their difficulties and call it a scholarship.
There you go.